So we've looked at how you present tabular data using tables, and now we're going to look at how you align visual elements using a table, how you assemble pieces of an image so that it all looks like one image. And this is a very common technique, and it is commonly done with tables. Although some people use CSS to do it, I prefer to do it with tables. Some people say it's bad to do with tables. I still prefer to do it with tables. I think it's easier, and I think it falls well within what tables were designed to do. So this is how you align visual elements using tables. And if you're interested in how to do this using CSS, I'm working on another course on CSS positioning, which you will also find on lynda.com, which will show how to do it that way. In this case, we are doing this with tables, and this is how it's done. Here we have an XHTML document with a table. And this is the table. You notice it says border equals 0, cell spacing equals 0, cell padding equals 0. Again, you can do this part with CSS if you prefer. But the idea is that you want to turn off all of that spacing stuff that tables normally do so that the images butt right up against each other and create one big image. So here's the 9 parts of the image. There's 3 rows, and each row has 3 cells, and there are all the images. And if we look at it on the browser, these are the 9 images. If I just right click on one of them and say view image, you'll see that part of the image, and you'll see that that's part 2 of the image. And go back, and there we have the whole image. I'm going to go ahead and turn on the borders in the table so that you can see that. I'll save here in the editor and go back to the browser and reload. And now we have the borders turned on so that you can see how the image is divided. You have 9 parts of the image. This part here is entirely white, so is that. But there are the 9 parts of the image, and you'll see that this one is broken apart because it has parts that are animated GIFs. And that makes it easier so you don't have to animate the entire thing. You can animate just the parts of it. Anyway, that's how that's done. Now you'll notice that this says bad version, and there's a reason for that. Let me go ahead and turn off the borders again in the editor, and I'll save. And now I'll reload this in the browser. Actually, this browser no longer shows this problem. This is Firefox. And Firefox thinks it's smart enough to know what I mean instead of what I say. And so it's putting the image all close to each other, even though in the document I've done it wrong and it's not supposed to show up that way. And you'll see that the cut apart and the cut apart bad version both look the same. And, for some purposes, one could appreciate that. The problem is that it hides a problem which happens to show up in other browsers. So I have another browser here. This is the Internet Explorer browser. And you'll notice in Internet Explorer that it actually shows gaps between the images. It used to show gaps vertically as well, and in this case it's only showing gaps horizontally. Older versions of all the browsers used to show gaps in between the images as well, and this is because there actually are gaps in between the images in the HTML. Let's take a look at the XHTML document again. You'll notice each of my table cells, we have TR for the rows, we have TDs for the individual data cells. Each of my cells has the TD above, the TD below, and the image in between. So what's wrong with this picture? Well, you'll see that there's space before the image, and there's another space because remember that the browser considers a new line another space. So we have 4, 6, 7 spaces or so here that are all getting folded into one space because that's what the browser does. And here after the image as well, we have more spaces. If we want the images to be butted right up against each other, if we want the images to not have any space between them, then we need to not put any space in the source document in the XHTML. So here is cut apart good, and these are in your exercise files. And you'll see how this is done. We have the TR, we have the rows. You see this all fits on one page really nicely too. It still looks very nice. And we have the TD for the data cell, and there's no space at all around the image. There's the image, and it's right up against the TD and right up against the TD. Now the way that tables work, this space here should be okay because the browser isn't supposed to display that. That doesn't appear anywhere on the screen. The only content in a table that's actually supposed to appear on the screen is the content inside the data cells and inside the heading cells as well. And so the data cell, this is what you want, is got the image in it and nothing else whatsoever, no spaces. And so we have TD, 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 all with no spaces. No spaces in this table at all. And so if we look at the cut apart good in Internet Explorer, we'll see that it has no spaces at all. So that's how that's done. So this is how you take an image, it's in pieces, and you assemble it using tables. And this is the correct way to do it. You have your table, cell border off, cell spacing off, cell padding off, and you simply put the images in your table data rows and your table data columns. And it all comes together really nicely. It looks nicely in Internet Explorer, and it looks nice in Firefox as well. So that's how you assemble an image using tables.